Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with another video. All right, so now we're talking Memphis Grizzlies, Minnesota Timberwolves, Game 5 in Memphis, Tennessee tonight at the FedEx Center. I believe they still call it FedEx. Maybe not. But either way, that is where it is. And these two teams are tied at 2 apiece in the series. And to be honest with you, it's been a nail biter, up and down, ebbs and flows, blown leads, no timeouts, even though everything's going crazy, players getting in people's faces. It's been a lot going on. Players removed from the series that otherwise started all year long. Ja Morant hasn't been great consistently in this series. His previous game wasn't his best, but you've had a lot of help from the Memphis Grizzlies that has made it so that they've been extremely competitive in this series. Zaire Williams had a little bit of an eye injury that pulled him out of the game for a spell in that last one. I'm wondering how he's going to be this evening. Is it going to be a situation where he's wearing goggles? Probably would be a wise idea if so. Minnesota Timberwolves called the number of a guy by the name of Jordan McLaughlin, of whom I've been telling them they need to be playing on this camera. I've been saying this along with several other players that I think they should play. And he did exactly what I thought he would do, which was show up for the moment and play pretty huge. Hit up a lot of three-point shots and just ultimately provided a massive scoring punch, and they needed every one of those points in Game 4 because they only won by one single point. Basically, all in all, you just want both teams to learn from their mistakes. You have maturity issues on both sides, one way or another. On the Memphis side of things, what I'm seeing is a team that plays really, really hard, but they need to focus. Fouls need to cease. They fouled over 30 times in this previous game, had issues where they just did not have an accountability for the points that they were giving up. In other words, you had moments at a time where points were going up on the board for the Minnesota Timberwolves, and there was no play being run because it was just simply fouls being called and just silly stuff that the Memphis Grizzlies was doing that would ultimately put them at the line. That stuff needs to cease. If the Memphis Grizzlies want to find themselves not only getting out of this series, but actually living up to their potential as a contender, they have got to grow up and grow up fast. So that's on them as a whole to learn from these mistakes, study, and be students in these playoffs. It's not just about competing; it's about learning, because these are the moments where it's going to help you in the regular seasons in the future. You're going to put yourself in a position to know how to close out games if you develop those habits right now in the playoffs at the highest level. So that is what I want to say there. And on the Minnesota Timberwolves side, by the way, if you listen to my other video, you will hear me say Minnesota when I'm intending to say Memphis quite a bit. It's kind of hilarious. But anyway, in this case, when we talk about the immaturity of the Minnesota Timberwolves, we're just talking about them playing together. There was a moment down the stretch of that game that I pointed out in the previous video where D'Angelo Russell and I believe it was Anthony Edwards had gotten into a situation where they couldn't seem to figure out how to get on the same page with one another. They both wanted the ball, and neither one of them really wanted to give it to the other. And once they realized they were making that mistake, then they started making mistakes trying to make up for it. It cost them 2 possessions. They ultimately won the game because Memphis was still fouling and doing stuff they shouldn't have been doing themselves. But at the end of the day, in most cases, I'm certain that will cost them. They need to have a clear-cut understanding starting from their coach, letting them know who the pecking order is. He's going to have to stand up and chest out and tell them kids, this is what our pecking order is. So there is no discourse so that there's no more of that. Because that starts with the coach. That starts with defining things. Because if Anthony Edwards is waving off D'Angelo Russell, or if D'Angelo Russell's waving off Anthony Edwards, then that actually means that somebody allowed them to think that both of them should be controlling the ball in this situation. That means a conversation of some sort was not had, in my opinion. So it's okay to not do that, not to know to do that, because they got a lot of things to think about. But now that this has happened, that's the next move for the coach. You got to sit them two down, along with Carl Anthony Towns, all three of them. You sit them down and you let them know exactly how this thing is going for the rest of these playoffs. You are my number 1 option. You are my number 2 option. You are my number 3 option, and that is my decision. That's what needs to happen. Because that, in normal cases, will cost you basketball games. Kids are going to be kids. They're not going to want to concede to each other. They are going to be selfish. That's natural. It's up to the grown-ups around them to define how best for them to be in their roles so that they don't ever go through anything like that. And that way, if they do stuff like that, they already know they're wrong. It's already understood by everybody. Yo, D'Angelo's tripping or Anthony's tripping. They know that ball needs to go this. We're running this play. That's who needs to get the ball. You know? Simple as that. So I think the coach needs to step in. He's made a lot of mistakes in this situation, so it's no surprise that we're seeing stuff like this. But he's going to, this is a situation where I think the coach is growing just like the players are, and you have to live with the coach's mistakes as well. But what needs to happen is the coach is going to have to learn and start showing that he's learning. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, for example, those timeout issues that he had, I believe it was in the last game, or it might have been in the game before that, game 3, where nearly the whole fourth quarter he had a massive lead and did not call a timeout as the other team was making a massive run. That cut into that lead, and they ultimately lost the game in demonstrative fashion. They had blown 20-plus leads in that same game. And he ended the game with timeouts. So that right there tells you how horrible of a decision and how lost he was in the most important moment of that game. So that's me assessing him from afar. And I'm pretty sure his superiors are as well. So he had better win this damn game tonight. And that means learning from your mistakes, I'm not saying I would do much better. I don't know that I'm a great coach, you know what I mean, or whatever. But at the same time, I didn't put myself in a position to be one. And when you are, when the pressure comes, it's on you to put the right players on the floor and make sure that you're using the most out of your roster, making sure that guys understand their roles, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you can't do that, because I tell you right now, that team, they would be here with a different coach. Don't get it twisted. That roster was going to the playoffs. I told you guys that roster was going to the playoffs before the season started, because you could see how it was constructed, and you could see how the rest of the West was constructed, that they had a damn good shot at getting here. And they're here. The coach may have helped a lot, but those kids, if you replace him, they'll be here next year for sure. So he needs to know that, and I think everybody needs to know that. He may be doing a great job, but these things that I'm seeing, this is stuff that make you say, okay, all right, I'm gonna continue watching. He can't keep making these types of mistakes. I can't keep seeing the behavior of this team go as it is. Yes, he's up 2-0 in this series. He's up 2-0 because those matchups are awesome and those kids are really good. He's going to show me that he can contribute to the success and not be a detriment to them holding big leads. So that is what I'm calling out. Coach Finch, I believe his name is. You're being called out, bro. You are on the hot seat with me because I am seeing stuff. Period. All right. So as far as the Memphis Grizzlies are concerned, because of what it is I just said, and because they lost the game by one, having fouled so much, having gotten 34 out of Bane, Zaire was pulled out of the game. There was a lot of stuff that was going on that the Memphis Grizzlies had to react to, including the fact that they were in a situation where they were on the road. Tonight, they're home, and Ja's not going to play as bad as he did in the last game. He's going to be embarrassed the way that he was. He's going to be back in there fired up, feeling that energy from that Memphis crowd. And I don't expect the Memphis Grizzlies to lose tonight's game. I really don't. I like the Minnesota Timberwolves, but at the end of the day, I do not actually believe they're a better team than Memphis Grizzlies. Now, they've proven to be as good as the Memphis Grizzlies, so I'm going to believe what I'm seeing. But at the same time, I do think that the coaching has played a role in this series, and I think it will going forward. And I just feel like Memphis is in a good groove headed back home, even though they lost this last game. It wasn't necessarily because they didn't play well. Now, there's a lot of things that Minnesota can do about that, including Karl Anthony Towns coming into Memphis tonight and having a similar type of night he did in Minnesota, because he forced the issue, and that is something that he needs to do. He's been called out. He had a game before that where he barely put up a few field goals, didn't even attempt more than 4 shots, I believe it was. And he responded well to that poor performance. You responding well to that poor performance turns it into a situation from you being someone who's not showing up in these series to you being someone who's wildly inconsistent in these series. That's where we are. So if you do it again, then we can get to a situation where we're saying, all right, he's playing well in this series. But if you go back around and start playing like you did in game 3, this is just you being wildly inconsistent, and it's basically you not showing up. So you got to keep it up, Karl Towns. One time ain't enough. These the playoffs. You're supposed to be one of the big time guys coming into their own. I'm looking at other guys in your lane or in your generation who are starting to step into their own. Now's your time, Karl. Now's your time. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all these great centers, all these guys in the past, when it was time for them to reach this age you're at right now, they started really dominating. So you got a special gift at shooting the ball. You got a special gift at being able to run the floor at that size and weight. I'd say you should be able to force the issue against the Memphis Grizzlies and have something to say against Jaren Jackson and Tillman and whomever else they throw at you. Speaking of Tillman, they've called your number, played well in game 2, been a dud since. If they're going to call your number, you got to be playing better, bro. A little 2 points, 2 rebounds, you too big for that. You're at home now, feed off of that crowd, grab some of the rim. Get some dunks tonight, man. I'm not feeling none of that small scoring. I know they gave you like 16 minutes, but I know what you can do. Get out there and hammer somebody. Straight up. I love what I see from Brandon Clark. Keep it up. Keep it up. You ain't been nothing but good for this team on both sides of the floor. I could argue the best player off of the bench has been Brandon Clark in this series, maybe in the entire playoffs, if you really want to talk about it. This dude is playing like a monster, and if he's continuing to do that, he will offset the Vanderbilts and the McLaughlins and the other stuff that they're throwing at you, because they're throwing a lot at you with that Minnesota Timberwolves. Patrick Beverley, you got a big night tonight. Straight up. This can't be a 5-point Patrick Beverley night. Consistency will define your legacy, because you're not overly talented, but what you can be is crazy, lockdown, spirited, knock people down if they have to be knocked down, pick them up if they have to be picked up. Patrick Beverley is the type of teammate I want. Patrick Beverley is the type of foe I don't want. But if Patrick Beverley ain't going to show up, Patrick Beverley is not a problem. He's not talented enough to not be engaged. He's not talented enough to not be focused. And he knows that. That's not a knock on him. Because him being as he is and playing at this level speaks to his dedication and his actual greatness. Greatness is displayed in many ways. His is unsung hero type of stuff and motivation, and being a terror, a nightmare, and a irritant to the opponent, which holds massive value in a series against youngsters. Drive them crazy, keep the refs under control. That would be what I tell Patrick Beverley. Drive the kids crazy, keep the refs at bay. If you can manage that balance, your team is going to win, because those kids are going to follow you. And last but not least, Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell once again, where we started. If y'all have duds, Minnesota didn't even get this far. If y'all didn't play well throughout the season, they didn't get this far. If you didn't have the 40-point games, dunking on Watabi and all this other stuff, they don't get this far. Those two players will be the story. Because I'm going to say this out of respect. Karl Towns is not going to do that. Karl Towns is going to follow y'all. He going to follow. He going to shoot. He going to dunk. He going to follow. D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards want to lead. They prove that. Even though they didn't do it in the right way, they don't know how to lead, but they want to. And that holds value too. They got to channel that into working together, because that's going to get them what they want. Because them working together, it's hard. They don't know it yet, but they're unstoppable. D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards playing at their best together is unstoppable. Period. They just don't. They're not that yet, right? They're not that yet. But if they start working together, they can discover that in themselves right now. And I don't see why they can't play off one another, because they both cater to each other's strengths and weaknesses. Anthony Edwards is a hyper athletic player who can cover a lot of space defensively. D'Angelo Russell doesn't move like that. D'Angelo Russell is a hyper precise uh, entity that can get the ball into places in a tight window, more so than most people. Sort of like Luka Doncic in that way. That's a special God-given gift. They both have special touch God-given gifts that you cannot teach. You could spend 3 lifetimes trying to develop what it is that they have naturally, and you won't get it. That's what I'm trying to tell you about both of those players. If they learn to work together, they can win a championship someday. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, so long as they keep the right stuff around them, of course. For which I think they may have right now if they just let them grow together. So, yeah, especially while they have these Vanderbilts and Jaden McDaniels. These kids all together are really, really tough to beat. Those two playing well will send them to the moon. But they gotta mature. They gotta want to see each other succeed. And they gotta believe that they can beat a team that's just as good as them or better. You know what I mean? Because of them working together. If they believe in the concept of those two working together to destroy their opponents, once they start believing in each other, it's a freaking wrap. That's how real that is. But they got to mature, and they got to get it under control. So that's what I see there. I'm a believer. I understand their limitations, but I'm telling you, together, you start negating some of those limitations. So I see something there. I think they see something there, and they just got to work together to make it happen. So I think that's what I honestly think. So that's what it is, Minnesota. The future's bright, but you got to get the right person leading the way. That's it. So I don't think they win this game tonight. With all that being said, I believe in Memphis just the exact same way. Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bain, Dylan Brooks, John Morant, one of the best cores in the game. That's one of the best young cores in the game. They can win a championship too, but they have to believe in each other. They got to work together, and they have to not foul. Literally, not foul. Stay focused. Pay attention to detail, both teams, and learn from one another. This is This is one of them series where you address both teams. Like, you want to see them both grow. You want to see them both learn, because they're both youngsters. They both are just like wide-eyed, and they don't know but they could lead the league into many, many, many different, eras. They can be the segue into the next generation, these two type of teams right here, along with the Houston Rockets and the Cleveland Cavaliers and some of these other youngsters as well. You address them both because you want to see them both learn, you want to see them both grow, and you want to see them both develop habits that make them better. So that's exactly how I'm looking at it. It ain't even about rooting for these teams. I just see two young teams that are going to be the future, and they got to get it right now, straight up. So I'm expecting to see a whole lot of good tonight from those young players. Desmond Bain is not going away. Buff Reggie Miller is not going away. He's for real. He shoots over 40%, and that's not going to stop. He's for real. So look for him to break records over the next several years. God, you've never seen a shooter like this. He's buff. He breaks the mold in terms of, if you have muscle, you shouldn't be able to shoot. He's killing that. So, yeah, I'm definitely enjoying his game. And so on and so forth, man. This is going to be fun. Like I said, Memphis is going to win this particular matchup at home. I think it could be tight. I think it's going to be another 1 point. Comes down to the last possession situation. But, it is what it is, man. They need bounce back performances from certain players that haven't played well. And both teams should continue trusting their benches, because that will work for them. So that's what I got to say, man. BDF 44, very excited about this matchup. One of my favorites. Enjoy. Peace.